Hi, everyone. This is Rob Roy, and welcome to the HUBB Financial Crypto Show, where we talk about all things crypto with Mr. Brandon Burton. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today. Been a little bit of craziness in crypto land as well, just like in the equities market. So, what's going on there?
Today's not a bad day, but if we look over the last couple of weeks, Rob, you're right. And we talked about this right before the show. I mean, we've had quite a bit of a sideways capitulation in Bitcoin and a couple of the other markets. I mean, Ethereum, Solana, all of them are doing kind of the same thing. But why are they doing that? What's happening? So let's dive into this. As you know, I'm not much of a chart guy, but I like to look at the facts and what's happening. And the ETFs, obviously, a big player right now this year in what is happening with Bitcoin. And if you know the word grayscale, you know it's also a cuss word in the Bitcoin world, okay? So grayscale, if you look at this chart here, grayscale has now dumped in the first 160, 170 trading sessions since September 11th. They've now dumped almost 400,000 Bitcoins because they are so stubborn to change their fee structure. People are leaving in mass, just exiting grayscale and possibly going into some of the other ETFs, but most likely just leaving for good. So obviously a big contributing factor as to why everything is trading sideways. Typically, we have not been this high this soon in the cycle, and I'll kind of get to that in a second. But because we jumped so high so fast, now since March, we've been trading sideways because the ETFs are kind of finding their footing. They're learning, about Bitcoin, how it trades, the volatility, and all that kind of stuff. The other ETFs are doing okay. BlackRock is holding its own, but Grayscale is dumping like mad. And if you check out this next chart here, you can see the correlation between the ETFs buying and Bitcoin's price. Right at the start there, you saw a whole bunch of ETF inflows initially, and this was pre-halving. This was before the halving, which is usually a big event in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's price jumped up and correlated perfectly. And as you saw, there's outflows and inflows. Bitcoin's price kind of stayed sideways a little bit here and there. And now, just recently, we have had 8 negative ETF, I guess you would call them eight outflow days in a row for Bitcoin. And as a result, Bitcoin's price has fallen the last 8 days. What do you know? If there's not buying pressure, there's not upwards pressure. So what do we have to look forward to, and what do we plan over at Digital Investor going forward for quarter four? Well, let's look at this chart here. This is a chart of historical percentage changes by month. Now you can see I have highlighted the halving years, and I'm going to talk about that because it's important. But you can see September typically is a down month. If you look at the very bottom, you can see the average and the median. If we take out November's huge gain the very first year, September still is always been a negative month. So are we going to buck the trend that year? I think so, because I think everything has started to shift forward. But if you look at every single quarter four in a halving year, they've all been green. And not just like a little green, but they've been a lot green. 3 positive double-digit months in a row is a big deal for Bitcoin, and that can mean big things. So what are the catalysts going to be going forward for Bitcoin for this quarter four? The first thing that we have is the miners. If you take a look at this chart here, the miners, this is first because this is global liquidity. A lot of people think this kind of works on its own cycle, but if you look at the dates, it's actually a 4-year cycle. And what do we see as the Bitcoin halving? It's a 4-year cycle. What do we look at as some other things? They're 4-year cycles. Global liquidity has just started to trend up, and it's going to follow its 4-year cycle. So what does that mean? There's going to be more money to be put into these risk assets as soon as the Fed starts printing money here, that I think they're going to announce here in a couple of weeks. Old Jerome Powell's going to come back from vacation, say, you know what, we need to go ahead and reduce our interest rates, which means more money is going to be printed, which means they're going to have more money in the system and more people are going to buy Bitcoin. This is historically the case. This is going to happen besides the fact that raising or lowering interest rates literally does nothing tangible. The optics of what's happening when they do that is so impressionable on the markets, and everybody think, oh yeah, we have more liquidity. Let's go do stuff. So anyway, that's what happens. So we followed this monetary liquidity supply. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. The second thing that we're going to start seeing here as we go through here is the miners. Okay. Around the halving time, the miners have to suck it up. They have to sell all the Bitcoin they have to pay for new hardware, new upgrades, so that they can respond to the ever-increasing hash rate of Bitcoin so they can still stay profitable. We've gotten past all that. Now, they just released their reports, and Riot, most recently, had just released their report 2 days ago. They just passed 10,000 Bitcoin in holdings, meaning they're starting to hold their Bitcoin rather than sell their Bitcoin. So less selling pressure equals price go up, which is always good for Bitcoin. The third thing that we're going to see happening here in quarter number 4 that we've been talking about for a little bit now is the FTX payback. They ruled in August, and I think this little blurb is clear back in August 8th, ruled that they're going to have to pay back $12.7 billion that they had taken off the market. They're going to have to start paying those back. And it's not paid in Bitcoin. It's actually paid in USDC and USDT, which are stable coins. Now, why this is a big deal, and actually the SEC is trying to have some qualms with this. Oh, Gary Gensler wants to fight his little fights, but he's going to lose. He's like, don't pay those guys back. I want to fight this. USDC is a secure. Anyway, he's struggling through life. We're going to give Gary a little break right now. But basically, what's happening right now is these guys are going to pay this back in USDC and USDT. So now all these people who had previously believed in Bitcoin, lost it from the FTX collapse, are actually going to get paid almost in full in USDC. So what are those guys going to do with all that $12.7 billion of USDC? They're going to go buy some Bitcoin and some Ethereum. They're not going to put this back under their couch. They're not going to put it in fiat, the everlasting, ever melting ice cube of the decreasing dollar. They're not going to do that. They're going to go buy Bitcoin because that's an increasing asset. If you go buy the US dollar, oh my gosh, you're just going to lose money year over year. As we know, about 99% deflation over the last 100 years. You don't want to do that. You know better than that. So you're going to go buy Bitcoin with your money, and $12.7 billion could be put into Bitcoin quarter 4. And then the last thing, obviously, that we need to talk about, that we have, I think, some tomorrow, there's going to be a debate, but this is a big thing for us in quarter 4 in the Bitcoin world, is what's going to be happening with the political scene. And I don't care who wins this election, right? I'll just say that, well, I care a little bit, but I don't want to talk politics, and this isn't the reason that I bring this up, but it matters now because this is a point that people are talking about. They're talking about crypto, and this guy here is talking about Bitcoin and how he is going to make America the reserve capital of crypto, because he doesn't want to see another country surpass America and start becoming the Bitcoin capital of the world. He's watching what El Salvador is doing, buying 1 Bitcoin every single day. So this is a big deal. So Bitcoin is going to be talked about in quarter 4. So these 4 things are going to help contribute to a positive quarter 4 for Bitcoin. And we're going to see this cycle continue where we see a positive 4th quarter. Anyway, Rob, I know that was kind of a lot of information, but that's what's been happening right now in crypto. And so I don't know where you're at with all this. If you want to look at some charts, we'll look at some charts. But I look at the fundamentals of what's happening, and that's what's happening.
That's why I love these conversations, Brandon, because you always have the behind the scenes stuff. And I do like looking at charts. So let's take a look at a chart of Bitcoin. And basically it's saying something's getting ready to happen, but it can be either direction. So if we take a look at the chart, you can see it is in an Elliott wave to the downside pattern, but it's got a big triangle. And so if you know Elliott wave rules, Elliott himself said a triangle trumps everything, kind of a pun there. But when we look at this, this pattern, the point of the triangle is right at 60,000. We are sneaking a little bit to the downside, but we hit this corridor support here right around 50,000 that goes back to February. Pardon me. So we're bouncing off that, and don't count the yen carry day. Everything had a big spike down that day. Basically, we're at this area of support, and we're trying to bounce back to the upside. As you said, we're having a much better day in crypto land today. And then if we go to the chart of Ethereum, this one worries me a little bit more, although we are right at support there. You can see same kind of scenario here with the triangle. It's not as well formed of a triangle as the Bitcoin one is, but it's still there. But it's a really well formed downward zigzag pattern. So there's potential perhaps to break. I think as long as we hold this support line here right around this 2,400 level that we're trying to bounce off the beginning of this week, if we can hold that and get back above 2,500, I think no harm, no foul, we're okay. But a break below that yen Monday low would, I think, spell more downside for Ethereum. But coming back to Bitcoin with this triangle pattern and testing that level of support, one thing that does occur with these triangles is once you break out, you come back and test the point of the breakout. So unless we're going to break below 50,000 and all hell break loose to the downside, which is what would occur if that happened, we should be moving back up towards the point of the triangle, back up to the 60,000 level, and then we start over. And perhaps that gets us a bit closer to the election, Brandon, and maybe the outcome of the election does at least give us a shorter term view of what may happen. But I'm in agreement with you on the ever eroding dollar, backed by nothing, fiat currency, and the initiative from some really smart people to understand that Bitcoin is a viable asset for the long term because of the fact that it has limited supply. And going all the way back to when the dollar was on the gold standard, that was much better time. Didn't have to worry about all this craziness with printing money and the excess liquidity. We could do a whole show on that, Brandon, going back to the days and show what liquidity moves were back before the Fed just turned on the printing presses and said just go. And just one comment, I used to get people when I would say, "Oh, the Fed printing money," and then somebody said, "The Fed doesn't print money, the Treasury does," and I was like, "True, but the Fed tells the Treasury how much they can print." So, I mean, it's just, if you want to get into semantics, okay, but that's what really goes on. So, just want to take a look at this chart with you, Brandon, and show that we did sneak down to some support. That could be, last time we got down here, we got all the way back up to 70,000. So maybe we're there. I was going to ask you on that Grayscale selling that you talk about. Do we know when that's going to start to dry up? Are they still doing it, or do you have any idea of how much more they're going to dump on the market?
Yeah, I mean, they have another 200,000 Bitcoin. So, I mean, potentially they could continue to dump forever. I mean, I still see it come in waves and kind of flows, but still we're seeing, I mean, if I'm looking at their numbers here, it's actually increased this last week versus the week before, kind of. In some spots, they had one really bad day on August 30th. But over this last week, I mean, they're still dumping $50 million a day, $23 million a day, $50 million a day. I don't know when that's going to dry up other than when they're out. I mean, if you look over at the Ethereum ETF, they're doing the exact same thing because they refuse to adjust their fee structure. And that's the only reason people are leaving so quickly. But I mean, that's not the whole picture, but that definitely has hurt it. It's hurt the appearance of what the ETFs were supposed to represent. So people seeing that kind of outflow, it's just, oh, there's outflow on Bitcoin, it's just a bad thing I don't know. It's a bad look, right? So that's the only thing with that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, please, but so people are leaving Grayscale because of the fee structure and they're going elsewhere, and then that's causing Grayscale to have to sell because they're getting redemptions. Is that basically how it works? Just like
basically
the regular ETF.
Yeah, exactly. They have a T+1. They have 1 day to be able to basically make sure their books are okay. And so if everybody sells the shares, they have to go sell the Bitcoin, right? And so the inverse is true as well. And so, yeah.
Yep. Same thing in equity world. All right, that makes sense. Well, eventually it'll slow down, dry up, or end. They'll be out of it at some point in time, but there'll be others to soak it up. So, what do you see? Do you still have any sort of forecast on the end of the year, or you think, let's see how all this selling plays out, and then we'll take a look at it again?
The big selling pressure is kind of, I think, dissipated to a point where we could start to look towards the end of the year now. It's hard to put a price target on this, but I do believe we're going to see new highs by the end of the year. I still believe that. And the reason I believe that is I believe everything that I just mentioned is going to come to fruition. And obviously, I think the election does play a small part in this. Let's just say that the election goes one way, I'm not going to say which way, we 100% will get new highs by the end of the year. If it goes another way, I think we see a dip immediately, a substantial dip. But I do believe it'll recover. It'll just take a little bit longer to recover because the end of the day, nothing fundamentally changes about Bitcoin. The only thing
Right.
changes is the policies will be delayed. And it might be delayed 4 years. So who knows? But nothing fundamentally changes about Bitcoin. Still a believer in the asset itself. It's just when will it get there? So it's a big deal. The election could be a big deal for the short term, but long term, it won't affect anything. We're still looking at $1 million Bitcoin by the end of 2030, 2035. It'll be $1 million of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally with you on the election. It's going to be short-term news, and then if the Democrats win, yeah, it'd probably take a quick hit, but it'll be absorbed and move back. It just pushes everything out perhaps a little bit longer, is the way I see it. If the Democrats were to win, and if the Republicans win, then perhaps it accelerates it a little bit. So
Yeah,
just going to change the
exactly.
speed of it, but it's not going to change the inevitability, right? So
Right.
just the timing a little bit. It's all that'll be affected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Anything else you wanted to chat with, or
No, I
wrap
mean,
this up?
obviously, if you guys want to learn more about this stuff, go ahead and go check us out over at Digital Investor. We do 3 live videos a week where we kind of go over all this stuff. We look at what's happening on behind the scenes. We look at how to use your crypto, how to stake it, how to put it in places where the crypto is going to be working for you. And we also go over things like how to send your crypto around, how to save your crypto, how to store your crypto, all kinds of stuff. We cover everything from A to Z to make sure that you're safe in the crypto world, which I think is important because it's a crazy world out there. And if you want to invest in things that are up and coming, just because it's a new market, you shouldn't feel scared to invest in it, because I think a lot of people, that's their initial trepidation. They don't want to get into crypto because they don't know how, or they're too scared, or they don't know if they want to hold the real asset. So they're investing safely in ETFs, which is fine. But there's a whole world out there of crypto that we could talk about. So go ahead and go check us out. We do live education all the time. We'll put a link in the description here.
Yeah, sounds great. And please visit that link. But I wanted to show you one more chart, if we could, Brandon, before we wrap things up. We spent most
Oh,
of the time talking
yeah.
about Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I wanted to show you Solana, which you briefly mentioned, but it's right there at a pretty good level of support there, 125. This one looks awfully intriguing at this point. We're getting a little bit of a bounce off of that level today as well. But that looks like an awfully strong level of support. And even if it were to break that, it's got other areas of support below it. So seems like perhaps a pretty decent time to be dipping your toes into some more Solana. You have any thoughts there? At least from a chart standpoint, it looks like this is a good risk to reward. Breaks
uh,
125, you get out, but you hold it here and it
yeah.
could. No,
I like Solana. No, I
not in
like.
agreement.
No, I'm not. No, sorry if I'm showing some disagreement here, but I do like Solana. I like where it's sitting. It's also the token people are moving towards for this cycle, with a few caveats, and I could talk forever about that. But there's a few caveats. But I do like where Solana's sitting. Solana's just had a huge run this year. It's outpaced Bitcoin. It's outpaced Ethereum. If you look at the Sol ETH chart, you would, I mean, be blown away. It's absolutely crushed Ethereum. But Solana's still moving. It's still outpacing Ethereum almost every single day because there's so many people coming over there, and they have a few upgrades. I think this week, I think they have a big conference coming up to explain the new changes to the protocol and some other upgrades coming up to the chain. And so that's going to be a big one. And they have FireDancer, which is coming up. I think they were saying late Q4, they're going to be talking about FireDancer, which is supposed to be increasing the transactions per second that they can do. And they just need a little bit more adoption, and they need a little bit more of the industry coming into the space to start using Solana. But a lot of people are still using Ethereum for those new RWA things, the AI things, and other things. So if Solana can capture that market share, it'll be off to the races. And I think they could get a higher market cap as compared to Ethereum.
Sounds great. Well, I think we've set up the next show. Next time we get together, we'll talk about that and go a little bit further. But thanks as always
Perfect.
for your time and insight. Appreciate it very much. And thanks everybody for viewing. And we look forward to talking again soon. Take care, everybody.